Now, if I know Krista right, medically I would say she would least likely like to eat an apple for the sake that she's allergic to it. So I would assume that that would be something that she wouldn't want to eat. But at the same time, when it comes to something that she can eat but would not like to eat, I would definitely have to say that the answer is Chipotle. I think I'm just the luckiest man in the world because as of yet today, Chris and I have yet to get in an argument, and I hope it's still long down the road until we come a time where we do disagree so much on something like that. But when it comes down to disagreements that we've had in the past, if we've hurt each other's feelings in any way, I feel like I'm also very blessed because Krista is one who openly speaks her mind. And so she is very quick to forgive as well as see the need to apologize, to see any weakness that she might have, and so she resolves that. And so I'd have to say that Krista takes the cake for that one. Who is a better driver? Me. Krista is an amazing driver. When she goes forwards, that is one thing. Going backwards, she is decent, that is for sure. But I think that I definitely have probably the upper hand when it comes to backing up, parallel parking, and also not causing the sense of fear for the passenger while you are driving. I can think of a few times while driving and Chris is at the wheel where I have really started to learn how to pray a little harder. So Krista and I shared our kiss at probably the place where a lot of BYU people have also shared their first kiss, but it was at Kiwanis Park, right next to BYU campus. So I don't know if it's necessarily her favorite item of clothing, but I know that both Chris and I absolutely love jackets and hoodies and all those types of things. And so I'm going to place my money that Chris is also going to say that jackets and hoodies are her favorite article of clothing. Well, Krista would probably tell you the exact date and day and time, because she's much better at those things than I am. But I can tell you that we met at the beginning of last summer, and we met at work in the referral center in the MTC. And so we were co-workers for a long time, never really worked together, but then one day, a very important day in my life, and for hers too, was that she got onto one of my shifts, and we worked together, and that was the start of something pretty amazing. So I don't know which story Krista's gonna tell you for this one, for what my first impression of her was. But first off, I'll be honest, we were co-workers first off. And so I didn't know who she was, but I knew she was a new hire. And so I didn't really have any perception or impression of her. But what I did know is that initially, she first just asked for all these subs to get off of work. And so in my mind, I had the initial judgment, I guess you could say, of, oh, she doesn't even want to work here. What is she doing? But then eventually when I actually came to meet her for the first time, something that both of us have said in the past concerning each other, and the first impressions we had was the light of Christ that I saw in her. When I saw her working with the people that she was working with at work, you could just tell very clearly and evidently that she had a relationship with God. And that was something that really was the thing that stood out so quickly to me in my eyes, was her testimony and her goodness and just her light that she had shining forth from her. One of my favorite physical characteristics of Krista would have to be her smile. I want every single one of you right now to look at Krista. Make her feel as awkward as she needs to be at this moment when you're all staring at her. But I want you to see her smile. Because for me, every time I see her smile, it just fills my day with joy and happiness. I can be having such a bad day or a hard day, and as soon as she smiles at me, it relieves me. It makes me feel so much better, and every time I see her smile, I just love her that much more. One of my favorite aspects of Krista's personality is her openness. Initially, this was one of the biggest things that stood out to me when I first met her, because as probably most of you know, dating in Provo is the worst. It's never easy because you never know what anyone is thinking. It's just terrible. But when I met Krista, that all changed, and I knew there was a higher law. And that was the law that Krista showed, because she was so open with what she was thinking, how she's feeling, and just communicating all together. I always was able to know when Krista was happy. If she ever had a question, she asked it. If she was feeling something, she showed it. And that was so powerful to me, to know, to be able to see so openly that she expressed who she was, and that she was proud to express who she was. Because with her openness, you were able to see that she was likewise humble and fun loving and happy and service oriented, because she just wanted to share that with others. She wanted to make other people's days, and yet with the openness it comes to a different aspect of her being able to share her feelings openly too. That was something that was really great and is so fantastic today, because that gives us the opportunity to always have this open communication with each other, so that there is something we need to talk about, that we talk about it, and if we're feeling something, that we share it, and so together it allows us to come closer together. It allows us to know how to help each other, and I just love her openness, especially because I can always tell when she's thinking that she loves me, because she always shows it with her eyes. And I think that's a part of the openness, that she's not afraid to express how she's feeling, or how she can help. It's just really, it comes down to just her showing her light to others, and I absolutely love that. You know what, Krista and I have kind of had an interesting history when it comes to pet names. Initially, when we were first starting to date, we actually looked up a website that had all these different types of terms of endearment, and it seemed like it was a list from around the world, because there were some weird ones in there too. But from there, we started saying certain things. On that list, there was like a German one called Schnickelfritz, and it sounds weird, and it was weird. But initially at the time, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. And so I called Krista my Schnickelfritz for a while, but that didn't really stick for some weird reason. And then we tried our mission languages, but Dusho just didn't sound weird, I guess, in the society we live in our English language. Then Mi Amor, I guess that one worked, but it didn't really stick. But today we've kind of evolved, and I think we've honed in on Babe and Lover and My Love. So, I mean, it's kind of those typical and usual ones, but those are the ones that Chris and I love the best. When did I know that I loved Krista? For me in this one, it's kind of interesting, because I don't think Krista and I have ever really talked about the moment when both of us individually really decided that, oh, I love this person next to me. But for me, it obviously, when we were dating, I always wanted to be with her. She made me so happy, and I just always felt so good around her. But then the time that it really changed from not just having a good time with her, but really seeing something special and knowing that I loved her was when her family came into town because it was her brother's wedding. And so she invited me to go to the wedding. And when I was there, I was able to see her with her family. I was able to see just how wonderful she was in so many ways, and how she treated so many people with so much kindness, and she was just so amazing. And at the end of that day and that weekend, obviously at the end of that weekend is when I told her I love you for the first time. But then it was that weekend especially when I was able to look at her after seeing her brother getting married and decide to myself, maybe this is premature, but if the next wedding that I saw was between Krista and I, that I would be perfectly happy, and frankly I'd be the luckiest man in the world. And there we are today. We get to look back at that moment and realize that was such a defining moment, and a moment that I'll never forget, but that I'm really excited to look back at in the future and just realize and know that I love Krista, and it will continue to always be just that same way.